What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be showing off the Sabine double aggression deck that I used to get top 8 at a store showdown. It sucks because I was really close to making top 4, but I didn't make it. I just missed out on top 4, and it was a little bit rough, but I'm going to go over this deck, and I do have another store showdown that I'm going to be preparing for, and I'm going to go over the changes I'm going to make as far as what I'm going to be playing and kind of give you the start of a preparing for a store showdown series, right? So this is gonna be episode 1, showing off a deck that I used to get top 8, but this is not going to be the deck that I think I'm going to end up using in the store showdown coming up next month, mainly because there are a few things that I felt could have been a little bit better. So let's start off. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Sabine here, and as we know, for an action, deal 1 damage to each base. And then when she flips over when you control 4 resources, which, contributes to her speed, which is one of the reasons why I played Sabine. I figured that there were going to be a lot of control type of decks. And, I figured that I would want to try to go fast and get around that before they could start, flipping the game around and controlling the game. So I decided to play Sabine instead of Cassian. As you guys know, I love Cassian, but for the future, in the next month's showdown, I will be going back to Cassian, and I'll be showing off the list that I'll be starting off with as far as getting ready with that next week. But continuing on with Sabine and the speed coming out on 4, she then, when she attacks, she deals 1 damage to a base. So Sabine, again, is really fast because she comes out on 4, but I felt that, only having 5 HP, and yes, you can maybe go ahead and swing with her for a couple swings and get a total of 3 damage into the base if you can. But if they put up a Sentinel, it could become an issue and stuff like that. I didn't run Tarkentown. I decided to just run a 30 HP base, which does come in handy in the other aggression matchups when you're going up against other aggression decks that want to use ECL or other 25 HP bases. I felt like having that 30 HP base did actually give me, a little bit of an edge in those matchups because it gives me like that 1 extra action or turn. But yeah. But again, when it comes to Sabine, I feel like, yes, she's fast, but if you're playing against a mid-range deck, they can not easily switch the game around, but they do have an easier time. Like if you're going up against a Boba Fett and stuff like that, it is a little bit rough at times. So I did end up losing to a Boba Fett green deck, which is kind of upsetting. It was a 3 games a match, right? So I lost game 3. So it is what it is. But let's go ahead and talk about the ground units, and we'll go from there, right? We have the Spec Force Soldier. It's good because you can go ahead and play it and get rid of one of those Sentinels that I was talking about. Again, Sentinels being the way to kind of slow down this deck. And one of the reasons why I want to go back to Cassian, because Cassian has having Saboteur is actually kind of big, and getting that draw power. I felt like in this deck, when it came to the mid-range decks kind of flipping it around, you didn't really have answers in your hand at times because, you were using all your cards, and then you kind of fizzled out. When I played Cassian, I didn't feel the fizzle out as much. So again, another reason why I want to kind of go back to Cassian. But again, Spec Force Soldier is good at getting rid of those Sentinels. Then you have Rebel Pathfinder, Saboteur to get around those Sentinels. Again, another cheap Rebel unit. This deck is built around Rebels and the speed of Rebels. So again, Rebel Pathfinder, just another way to go ahead and, contribute to the speed. Sabine Red, we only play 2 of on attack, deal 1 damage to a defender or to a base. So even if you have to swing into a Sentinel with this unit to finish off a Sentinel, maybe you can still get a damage into the base, which is pretty good. In a double red deck, though, you are not going to have Sabine Wren being able to not be targeted by attacks. So that's one of the things. It's like, okay, I played it as a 2 of because, she's not gonna get her first ability, and we just kind of rock on from there, right? Fighters for Freedom is actually a big piece of this deck. Again, another Saboteur, but when you play another red card, you may deal 1 damage to a base. It becomes an immediate target for your opponent to, rather than swinging into your base, try to deal with this unit, because if not, then you're playing a bunch of red cards. And again, I'm playing double red, so everything's red. It just contributes to the speed of this deck. We have Fleet Lieutenant, probably one of the most important cards of the deck. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it is a rebel, you get +2/+0. You can attack with a unit that's not a rebel, but you don't get that attack bonus, which is still okay if you want to go ahead and play a unit, get an attack off in 1 action to make sure you grab the initiative. It's not a bad play, but again, a lot of the things in this deck are rebels, so you're not going to really have to worry about that. So next, we play 2 General Dodona. Now, the reason I play General Dodona in this deck, well, the main reason is because when you are on the turn to get out Sabine, you can go ahead and play Dodona down and then bring out Sabine, giving her that 6 HP needed to get around those takedowns, which is pretty key to keeping her on the board a little bit longer. Plus, it powers up all your other rebel units, which again, everything in the deck is pretty much a rebel unit. So I just felt like having this as an option on turn 4 with your 4 resources to protect Sabine from getting takedown against those control decks, I felt like it actually did serve a purpose here. Next, we have K2SO, Cassian's counterpart. It has Overwhelm, great ability, and when defeated for each opponent, choose one, either deal 3 damage or you make a discard a card. Just a really, really good card. This card plus other things, like this card goes really well with Fleet Lieutenant because again, you can swing for 6 into something and do Overwhelm damage and maybe possibly also get taken out to deal even more damage, which is pretty good. And then, you know, again, it's just a 4/4 with Overwhelm that when it blows up, it does damage. So just really good. This is probably one of the best cards in the deck. Next, I play 2 Gorilla Attack Pod. Now, I think I'm going to end up moving this to my sideboard. The reason being is that when it comes down to when this card can be used effectively, if you are doing what you need to do and maintaining the speed, you don't really need this to come out ready because you're just going to finish off the game before you even use your resources on turn 6, right? I haven't had a point where I played this and it comes out ready and then it doesn't immediately get blown up or it actually swings in for game. So it's like, yes, it has grit. Yes, it comes in ready, does 15 damage on either base. And that's really good. I just think that this in the sideboard might be a little bit better so I can go ahead and draw other things that might be more important during the match. Oftentimes I draw it early and it does go in as a resource. And I'm like, again, I understand the use of the card because it can finish off a game when your opponent least expects it, but it hasn't come in handy as much as I thought it would. So I just don't think it's as needed as other cards could be in this deck, right? But still a good card if you want to run it. I definitely don't say don't run it. I just feel like for myself personally, this is not the card I want to run. I feel like in a deck like this, playing out multiple units of 3 cost is better than just getting out 1 6 cost unit unless your opponent has tapped out and they can't do anything in response to this, and then you can get it out and maybe swing for 4 end game. But that's about it, right? Now, going into our space units, we only have 12, but still, you know, this deck is actually really good if you can go ahead and start in space before your opponent. It can become really hard for your opponent to slow down this deck, which is why the deck has a lot of speed in space, right? You have your Alliance X-Wing, just a generic 2/3, 2-drop, just, you know, get out there, get some space units, right? One of the best starts in the game. If you don't have the initiative, this might not be that best, but if you have the initiative and you play on a Green Squadron A-Wing, it's really, really good, especially if you're playing against a mirror match and they only have a Green Squadron A-Wing. Then your first move is to swing into their A-Wing. You only take 1 damage back and you still have your A-Wing on board, and then you can go ahead and start to go from there. But Green Squadron A-Wing into Wing Leader is really, really strong because then you're going ahead and you're swinging for 5 while also having 5 HP, and if your opponent's not playing in space right away, it can become a really big problem for them. And that's one of my favorite starts for this deck. It contributes to the speed and makes it really, really fast. And then also, if you have Red 3 out there as well, you're just getting more and more attack buffs on your units. It gives them 1 raid if they're heroic, which a lot of the cards in this deck are heroic. As far as the units go, I'm pretty sure all of them are. So that's what we're rocking with space. It's pretty straightforward. It's just everything kind of contributes to powering up units on the board and making it hard for your opponent to deal with. So again, the deck is fast, especially if you get a start in space. It's actually really, really good. And that's why I really liked this deck, which is why I chose to go with Sabine over Cassian. Now, the reason why I didn't choose Cassian to go, even though I had a lot of success, I felt like the speed of Sabine might have been better. But going back, I probably should have just stuck with Cassian for reasons I'll probably go over later. But let's go ahead and talk about the events we ran in the store showdown, right? We have Medal Ceremony. If you're swinging out with all your rebels and, you know, you have this card, it costs 0, you just go ahead and power them up. It's a really good way to go ahead and make it so you have more pressure on board and you can swing for even more, right? Heroic Sacrifice, a great card, especially paired with K2SO. When this unit deals combat damage, defeat it, it gets +2/+0 for the attack, and then also you get to draw a card. Helps with the fizzling out aspect of the deck and only costs 1. So you get more damage and you can go ahead and draw a card. It's pretty good and probably one of the best cards in the deck. I tried to focus this deck around getting to use cards that power up units and allow them to attack as well. So you have your Fleet Lieutenant, you have your Heroic Sacrifice, and Precision Fire. Now, maybe people don't actually agree and feel like you shouldn't play Precision Fire, but the reason I did play Precision Fire, and I'll probably continue to do so, is because we have so many troopers in here. Plus, if you have Fighters for Freedom on the board, you can go ahead and swing for essentially 6 because you get 1 damage for playing the card, and then you swing for 5 because it is a trooper. Now, you don't need it for Saboteur on Fighters for Freedom, but still, dealing out that 6 damage is really, really strong. And again, the troopers that we have in the deck, we have Fleet Lieutenant, we have Rebel Pathfinder, right, and the Spec Force Soldier, as well as Fighters for Freedom. So we have the targets for the +2, +0. And again, it helps you get around those Sentinels, which does slow down this deck. Next, we have Keep Fighting. Now, this is a card that I probably should take out. I felt like the way that the deck was operating with the getting the +2 onto my Green Squadron A-Wing, in the late game, if I still had it on board with the +2, I can go ahead and swing with it, and then go ahead and use Keep Fighting and swing again. That's 10 damage on the board immediately. It, was really good, but I feel like there's a replacement card that I'll talk about for this card. I'd probably play 2 of the other card. When we get there, we'll get there, but I think Keep Fighting is a card I can get rid of, as well as Guerrilla Attack Pod, right? For a cause I believe in. Great card. Reveal the top 4 cards of your deck for each heroic card revealed this way. Deal 1 damage to an enemy base. You may discard any of the revealed cards and put the rest back on top in any order. So this is one of the best cards in the deck. And yes, we do play Precision Fire and Keep Fighting. Another reason why Keep Fighting should probably end up getting chucked out of the deck, right? And then we have Aggression, which is the next card we're going to talk about. Those are the only cards in the deck that aren't heroic. And again, we are going to be switching Keep Fighting for something else. But for a cause I believe in can come in clutch if your opponent is controlling your board really, really well. And it's kind of like the mid game and you only need like 10 damage. And you can go ahead and play this, set yourself up for maybe future plays as well as getting off 4 damage. It can really, really help you in the long run. So it's a really good card and is a 3 of in this deck. And then next we have Aggression. It's a great card. To be able to play this for 4 is extremely, extremely strong. You can go ahead, you can draw a card, defeat up to 2 upgrades. That's really big against control because if they're playing Entrench on your units, it can become a problem for sure. So being able to pop 2 upgrades, maybe in a trench or something, to stop them from slowing you down is pretty good. Ready up a unit with 3 or less power. Another reason we can get rid of Keep Fighting because we do have Aggression. It's a card that kind of does the Keep Fighting plus something else. And yes, when we have 6 resources, we could play this, ready up a unit, and then go ahead and play Keep Fighting and ready him up again. But still, for the most part, Aggression is good enough on its own to be the Keep Fighting card in this deck. And then deal 4 damage to a unit. It's a really good way to kind of deal with the mirror when it comes to Aggression decks, right? When you're in the mirror match with Aggression, you can kind of slow down your opponent while also being able to, maintain your speed. So there was a match I went up against a green Sabine in the store showdown, and I obviously had the initiative, and I went ahead and played Green Squadron A-Wing, and then I got Red 3, and then he was putting out space units and ground units, right? And so I was swinging my Green Squadron A-Wing into his Green Squadron A-Wing, then switching my I swung my Green Squadron A-Wing into his Red 3, and then I used Aggression to ready up my Green Squadron A-Wing and pop one of his ground units. And it allowed me to go ahead and still attack into the base while also getting rid of the ground unit he had just played. And then the following turn, I had another Aggression, and he had played a Green Squadron A-Wing, and I had swung my Red 3 into the Green Squadron A-Wing this time. And then I had another Aggression, played that, again, popped one of his ground units, and re-readied up my Red 3 to be able to still attack into his base. And so it's able to give you that option to use your units to swing into their units and then go ahead and re-ready them up to still get that damage for the turn into the base, which allows you to keep up that speed, which is what I really liked about the deck, which is why I chose to go with double red. So there are things that you can go ahead and add and take out. Obviously, we can go ahead and hop into the sideboard Now going ahead and hopping into our sideboard here, we had one restock just in case we went up against a control deck that wanted to go ahead and use Vigilance and start to go ahead and mill us. So I felt like the restock would have been pretty good. I had 3 Wolf, just again, to stop the healing of control decks. You play it, it stops any base from being able to heal for the turn, so that's pretty good there. Also has Saboteur, so that's pretty good. I had 2 Open Fire. If I had played against a more mid-range deck and it was really going ahead and taking out my units before I could do anything with them, I'd go ahead and throw this in and maybe, you know, try to slow them down as well. Next, I had 2 Saw Gerrera. Saw Gerrera, again, against decks that want to play a lot of events, this was pretty good. Also being a 4 costing 5/4 makes it a pretty big threat, so he's a pretty big body on the board. And then Force Surrender, if I had done damage to, you know, that turn, I can go ahead and draw 2 cards and force my opponent to discard 2 cards from their hand, which is good against control decks again, if they want to try to slow you down, or even mid-range decks. This is just good at trying to, you know, make sure you don't fizzle out, and then maybe trying to make it so your opponent has to make a decision on what they keep in their hand. And if it comes down to the point where they only have 1 card in hand, that is the perfect scenario for sure. So that's what we're rocking with the sideboard. Some things I would potentially change, right? Keep Fighting, I would actually go ahead and take out Keep Fighting for Rebel Assault. Now, yes, it is a green heroic card. I will be playing Rebel Assault in this deck in my next locals, and I'll go over. I'm going to be switching to Cassian, but it's going to be an interesting Cassian deck. But Rebel Assault can really finish off a game for you. If you're really close to finishing off a game, again, everything in this deck is pretty much a rebel, so you can go ahead, even if it does cost 3, it's at the end of the game. So you're playing it for 3 and attacking with 2 rebels and getting +2. So essentially you are using a fleet lieutenant, so you get your +2, but you're attacking with 2 units. So it's just really strong, and yes, even for the 3, it is worth it in the late game. So I do plan on playing Rebel Assault in this deck, getting rid of my Keep Fightings and having that finishing card, Rebel Assault, when your opponent least expects it. So let's just keep that in mind. And again, with a Guerrilla Attack Pod, you know, again, yes, I'm leaning on taking it out, but you could definitely keep it in. And obviously, as we continue to develop our deck, again, this is going to be a little bit of a series. We're going to be calling it Preparing for the Store Showdowns, episode 1. And as we continue to progress our decks and continue to try them out and show video of how they're performing and stuff like that, and taking in stuff from you guys as well, we'll know what we have to switch, and maybe Guerrilla Attack Pod does officially get taken out. But for right now, we're going to keep it, and the only thing I'm going to change in this deck is going to be Keep Fighting for Rebel Assault. So keep that in mind. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and all the support as of late. Greatly appreciated as always. And again, we do have a giveaway coming up. If you haven't checked out my last video, that'll be down in the description below. We're going to be giving away a full blinged out like deck. It's going to be, you know, no, it's budget, but it is going to be completely blinged out. If you're having trouble getting into the game or getting started, it's going to be a good giveaway to get you guys started and maybe, you know, getting your first deck and, you know, trying out the game and keep it rolling from there, right? And you can always make changes as you continue to get cards in the future. So with that being said, again, thank you so much for all the support. I'll see you guys in the next video.